Coming up today on the Locked On Hornets podcast, we speak about everything that Mitch Kupchak had to say, the GM just this past 4 years, and going to be the GM for the foreseeable future, in his words. We'll talk about that, plus his comments on LaMelo, what he needs to improve on. There's a lot to get to, so let's start right now on the Locked On Hornets podcast.
You are Locked On Hornets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
In a minute, cuz we live.
It's Locked On Hornets. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Bet Online. Bet Online has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. Bet Online, where the game starts. Thanks for making us your first listen. We're free. We're available wherever you get your podcast. That includes YouTube. I'm Walker Mail, been covering Charlotte sports for a while, different publications. Doug started this thing alongside David Walker, who joins us as he does every single Friday, allowing us to have a fun Friday. There's just so much content to get to, so we needed to bring David Walker to help us break it all down as well. I also wanted to start off the show, before we talk about Mitch Kupchak, by telling you there is a way that you can make Doug dress like a grandma or maybe a grandmama. That's right. If you like us on Facebook, we're on a quest to try to get, this is happening, Doug. We're on a quest for 1,000.
I didn't approve this.
No, you did. We're going to get, I don't care if you did or not. We were doing this because you've signed me up for some BS on the show before without consulting with me
What are you talking
whatsoever.
That's true.
So I am absolutely doing this to you right now. If you like us on Facebook, we're on a quest to get 1,000 Facebook likes. And if we get there, Doug is going to dress like grandmama. He's going to put on the dress.
Wow.
He's going to put on the pearls. He's going to look just like Larry Johnson, except maybe not as athletic.
This is going to get
That's what
expensive.
we're going to aim for. That's what's happening. I don't care. Like, man, you have thrown me into the fire on some of those things. And this time it's only right that I reciprocate it.
I was going to play it. Here we go.
That's right.
I feel you. You said it. You said it on the air. You said it in front of our live audience on YouTube, by the way, youtube.com/Locked On Hornets podcast. So fine. Yeah. If everyone goes and likes us on Facebook and we get to 1,000 likes, I think we're sitting at like 200 right now. So we're probably, I'm going to challenge people. Like, we probably can't even do it. You probably can't even do it. So I'm not even worried about it. I'm not going to have to dress like grandmama.
The reverse psychology. I like it. I'm hoping that it does happen. I'm hoping that Doug does dress like grandmama. I'm trying to fix my camera right now because I'm not in this tiny little box for Fun Friday. Now we're centered. Now we're ready to go. Now we're ready to talk about Mitch Kupchak. All right, Doug. Got a lot of comments to get to. David, he spoke about LaMelo Ball. Let's get to, we have video of this, right? You have gone above and beyond, not only bringing us sound bites, but you brought us video clips to play because we are now also a visual medium here on Locked On Hornets. You want to start with LaMelo? You want to do that first?
Always.
I feel like we haven't talked enough about LaMelo on this show, and I'm not even joking. Honestly, we've been talking about a lot of different draft scenarios, but I think we need to refocus on, the player that will take this team into the Eastern Conference Finals if they do indeed get there, and that's LaMelo Ball. And so in this first clip, Mitch Kupchak is asked about what LaMelo Ball needs to improve on, or what in his mind LaMelo Ball needs to improve on. Let's take a look.
Well, I'm not worried about him, his work ethic and getting in the gym, right? He loves the game. He'll be in the gym. He'll continue to work on his game. I don't think that's a question. He does need to get stronger, and it may be hard for you to notice, but I think he's made some improvement over his rookie year. He's gotten a little bit stronger. So I think he's got to get stronger, which obviously means he's got to get in the weight room. And, the next step is also to become a better two-way player. Offensively, he's just a joy to watch and a joy to play with. Managing, end of game, end of quarters, 2-for-1s, that part of the game. I think that'll come naturally as he gets older and has more experience. Right. But the things he can control right now would be getting stronger and becoming a better two-way player, which means on the other side of the ball, which is the defensive side of the ball.
Okay. First,
oh, no.
Hold on.
Well, we got to bring the intro. We got to play it multiple
It's
times an
yeah,
episode.
one time. It always happens. Still figuring it out.
At this time, I just want people to realize they are watching and listening to Locked On Hornets. The first thing I want to go to before we talk about what he thinks LaMelo needs to improve on, Mitch Kupchak feels like he needs to describe the game of basketball and NBA operations to a 5-year-old. He says he needs to be a two-way player, which means he needs to be better on the other side of the ball, which, by the way, is more so football. He needs to say at the other end of the court. And he says, which is the defensive side. He did this multiple times yesterday. Mitch Kupchak does this constantly. He
Just wants to make sure
It's
you
old
know.
school,
Yeah.
baby.
Yeah,
That's right.
he was describing restricted free agency to us. Like, so what's the plan with Miles Bridges? He's like, well, as you know, Miles Bridges is a restricted free agent, which means we can match any offer sheet.
I love it.
Yeah, I do too. It's hilarious. The things he needs to improve on, David, I'll start with you. I didn't think there was anything crazy. I thought all of that was awesome to hear from, right? He does need to improve defense. He does need to get stronger. I like that Mitch Kupchak gave him credit for actually getting maybe stronger than people realize, because he is still a slender dude out there playing basketball. And I think the most obvious one, certainly in that game against the Atlanta Hawks, the play-in game that they just got destroyed in, we remember LaMelo not managing the game right at the end of the halftime. And then instead of possibly bringing it to 6 or 4, LaMelo took a shot, not milking the clock off the shot clock, time off the shot clock, and then Trae Young hits a free throw. But I think all of that was more than fair, and it's also nice to hear him say LaMelo you can't kick him out of the gym. He loves it so much.
That's the big thing, and that's what you feel good about, and that's what everybody's commented on. Even Magic Johnson, when he's been asked about LaMelo, his love of the game, he wants to keep playing. That's all he does. And he gets tattoos as well, but in between that, he plays basketball a lot, and so that's what you love. Yeah, a lot of new tats too.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, nothing surprising, I don't think, from Mitch. I mean, the strength is a thing. He's a young guy. I don't ever foresee him being like LeBron level swole. You know what I mean? So he's always going to be a wiry guy. The situational stuff was the big thing to me, along with the defense, of course. But like, he makes so many plays for his teammates. Obviously, he makes the spectacular plays. He doesn't make them when they're forced. You know what I mean? And they work. Like the highlight pass, the half court behind the back pass led to an easy bucket. Like that's what he does. I think the next level for him is getting those sure things when they're there, the instant they're there, right? Like finding the teammate as soon as he's open to get that easy shot. That's going to come with, some more talent around him as well. But I think Mitch was, right up front, and nothing surprising there, Doug. I mean, all the things that we've seen from LaMelo. The defensive thing, I am excited to see a new regime come in here, because I think LaMelo, with his length and his quickness, like he gambled a lot, right? I mean, that was one of the faults on him. For better or for worse, he gambled a lot, but I think he's got the instincts to be a good defensive player. He's just got to be able to manage his energy throughout the game, where he can expend himself, maybe not gamble so much, and learn. And for the love of God, stop with the take fouls, right? We've got to clean that up too.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to go to the chat here. We got a lot of people rocking the chat right now. Tyler saying, hey-o, hey-o. Books and Doug's best friend. Love that handle. Says another straight fire fit from Doug. Thank you very much. Tar Heel PD says, what's up, fellas? What's up? Hey-yo.
What's up, Tar Heel PD?
Tar Heel PD also says, Doug Mama. I like it. Yeah,
I do like it.
Try.
Doug Mama's good.
Yeah, so again, if you're just joining us, 1,000 Facebook likes. I dress like a grandmama. I got to find the pillbox hat. I think that's going to be the toughest part to find. Those things they don't make those much anymore.
Tougher than the dress for you think?
I think that's probably going to be the easiest part.
You can find
a
dress out there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's going to be the easiest. But it's that
Will
pillbox
match your
hat.
coloring, though. We'll see.
Well, yeah, I got to find something that matches the old eyeballs for sure.
Mm-hmm.
John saying, good morning, goats. Good morning.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much. You're the goat.
That's beautiful. So here's one that I wanted to, SZ said 3 says likeliness that Mitch set up his own Zoom. Well, we should mention that.
Yeah.
So this episode, we're going to be seeing Mitch a lot, and he did do this press conference over Zoom. He's in Chicago right now, looking at some of the kids that they might draft in Chicago for the combine. So he's in a hotel room. It's tough. I've done it. It's tough.
Hey, excellent question, but also credit to Mitch, because he probably did do it himself. I think he's just on the phone with PR back at home. Hey, maybe he needed some help doing it. Maybe he had some help on the phone.
Maybe
there's nobody in that. Yeah. So still, credit to Mitch. Also, excellent question.
Timothy, shout out from Shelby, North Carolina. I'm going to be in your neck of the woods for a wedding come at the end of June. Can't wait to visit Shelby.
Shelby, North Carolina destroyed my high school football team 2 years in the playoffs. So a little saltiness with Shelby, but we appreciate the listen nonetheless.
I don't know what to do with this J, but it's Banjito, maybe Banjito. What up from
Probably.
Manila?
Okay.
So I don't know.
Sweet.
I don't know how they
Shout
handle
out.
the J. I don't know. Shout out. I don't know how they handle the J in Manila. Danny on the chat says kudos to Walker for asking the big question yesterday that clarified Mitch's
you.
future.
There you go.
Hey,
appreciate
that's
it.
coming up. That's coming up here on the
We have
Locked On
video.
Hornets podcast. We got a lot to get to. I want to do one more shout out to my man Matt from New Zealand. He said we are always his first listen. I'm telling you, this podcast is worldwide, folks.
Thank you.
Watch out. All right, so we just heard from Mitch Kupchak talk about what LaMelo needs to improve on. Here are my quick thoughts on it. I think Mitch Kupchak was deft in his criticism. He was always masking the criticism with, what he feels like LaMelo is doing well and clarifying that LaMelo is a gym rat. He's going to improve on these things. So I thought, if you're going to answer that question, he probably did it in as honest a way, but also as in a careful way, such that you take care of the ego and the image of your future superstar player. I thought it was well
Smart.
done by Mitch.
Same.
But and I agree with both of you. I think the criticisms are stuff that we've been talking about all season. And I think LaMelo projects an air of like, I've got it all figured out. I was born to do this. I'm not from here. I'm an alien. I have,
Rare.
supernatural instincts. And I love that. I love projecting that confidence. But I think in his heart of hearts, LaMelo understands the game of basketball. He understands what he needs to improve on to become an NBA superstar.
Do you guys think that there's an expectation or a need or a want for him to turn into like the guy down the stretch, like a Ja, someone who has the ball in their hands and they're looking to get a basket? I mean, that would be that would be the next level, right, for LaMelo.
Right.
I mean, he is a pretty pure point guard, but I mean, that would catapult him to superstar level, I think, in my mind, which is not something Mitch mentioned, and it's still early on. But I just wonder how close you think how close you guys think that is.
Yeah, we've seen flashes of that. I go back to Milwaukee where he's going to his left and hits that really tough shot against a team like the Milwaukee Bucks. And that's a flash there. But also I go back to the interview that LaMelo did with Del Curry, and they're shooting baskets. They're shooting from the 3-point line on the practice floor. And that was the most engaging I had seen LaMelo. One, kind of illustrates just how comfortable he is on the floor, maybe talking to a former player, not necessarily with the media. And he was a lot more engaging. But he answered that question, how much he embraces that moment. Dell asked LaMelo, what do you like more, making the sick pass, the behind the back half court to Mason for a reverse jam, or do you like being the guy that takes that last shot? He said, just in the normal run of a game, he likes making the nice dime. That's what he likes to do in just your normal play, first quarter, 5 minutes to go. That's what he'd like. But when it comes to a crunch time shot, LaMelo wants to take it. Is that not exactly what you want? I mean, would you? That's exactly to a T what I want from LaMelo. And so the important thing is he embraces that. He wants to be a pass first point guard for majority of the game to get guys involved. He's already shooting the 3-ball well. We've talked about that a ton this past season, but he does want to take that last shot, and we've seen him be successful in doing so. So yeah, I think you're right, David. We'll see if he is like the guy you drop a play for. Right. Instead of maybe a Terry Rozier, a Miles sometimes, but and
some of that comes with getting stronger, right? So if he gets stronger, he can take it to the basket in those late game situations, try and get a foul or go through contact to get an easy bucket and get to the line or something like that. But yeah, I think that's just another level. But we have seen flashes of it. You're right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we talked about how Mitch Kupchak was deft in his criticism of LaMelo Ball, and he was couching it in all kinds of ways that LaMelo has improved and is already ready to go. But he got another tough question about LaMelo, which had to do with this head coaching search that the Charlotte Hornets are on right now. Someone asked him, is LaMelo Ball being consulted on the new head coach, which is, in fairness, a question that a lot of our commenters have had, and I think a lot of LaMelo Ball fans want to know, is he being consulted? Let's hear from Mitch.
I've not consulted anybody.
Boom.
if we ever get to the point where, we have like, some of the top 10 players in the league, and they're in this league for 5, 10, 12 years, then maybe I'd have a discussion. But, we're a young team, and,
I'm not.
no, I did not reach out to anybody, and nobody's called me.
Straight up. And nobody's called me. I
Heck
love
no.
the dismount. The dismount is important.
That's
Yes.
important.
Yeah,
Important.
it is. LaMelo isn't in Mitch Kupchak's ear. Remember the report about Mark Jackson? That's what people made a big fuss about, right? I think it was our boy Jake Fisher who put this out there, who is the one that breaks
Please
all
don't
this.
aggregate me.
Well, you can't say that. We are going to aggregate it. We are in the business of aggregation. But that's the guy that
Right.
put this out. And it was never really from LaMelo. I think it was reported like LaMelo's camp or somebody like that. And I'm sorry if I have the details wrong, but I think that's right. Okay. Like, I
That
don't
was
think
it, though.
LaMelo
That
is
was
sitting
it,
there
though.
demanding Mark Jackson or I'm out. Mark Jackson or I'm demanding a trade like Luka or Zion, or we've got some beef, we've got some problems. Yeah. David, what do you think about those comments from Mitch?
And specifically, David, like, is that fair of Kupchak to say, listen, this is a young team. We're not talking about guys that have been in the league 10, 12 years who have made, multiple All-NBA teams. We're
Right.
talking about a young team. Is he fair in that and saying that?
Well, he's accurate. You know what I mean? And he's from the old school. I mean, and I don't think even like LeBron, even though everyone knows he's got a big hand in it, the Lakers and whomever's in charge still say that, we're making decisions, we're running things around here. So I think
They're lying.
Mitch is
Yes,
fine.
they are. They
Yeah.
are
Right.
lying.
Yes,
That's
they are
not
lying.
accurate.
Yes.
Mhm.
Right. Exactly. But I mean, he's got it's so funny. Mitch is like in this interview, I mean, it took him a while to say he's back and as the GM, and so like for him to go out there and keep hammering at him, like he's like, no, I didn't call anyone and nobody called me.
And that's that last part we said that's important because at least as far as Mitch Kupchak is concerned, those if LaMelo has an opinion, it has not reached the general manager level. So there you go. That's what we know.
Well, and this is so. I know a lot of people want LaMelo's opinion to be considered here, right? A lot of LaMelo fans, maybe even Hornets fans, want LaMelo's opinion to be considered. If his all-out answer for who the next head coach should be would be a Mark Jackson or Coach X compared to Mike D'Antoni, because we haven't heard that from LaMelo, right? Like, I'd rather a Darvin Ham, but I've been clear Mike D'Antoni would be a great fit for LaMelo because of his star potential, because he's a point guard. Isn't this the Hornets still acting in the best interest of LaMelo Ball, even if they're not gauging what his opinion should be at 20 years old, 2 years in the league? I think it's extremely important that LaMelo's happy to keep him in Charlotte too. I don't want to get it twisted, but if you get somebody that he wants and then the end doesn't really work out, that's still a pretty damn quick road to LaMelo not being happy. And he's not going to care that he made that decision. He's like, well, it doesn't matter. I'm still not happy. I want to go. But if you get somebody you think will make LaMelo happy, ultimately that's the thing you need to do. And if the answer is Mike D'Antoni, there's some hints we'll get to as the show goes on that leads you to believe D'Antoni is furthermore the leader in the clubhouse. But that's ultimately what we need here in Charlotte. Who is the coach that's going to make LaMelo happy? And if the Hornets have that in their head, and I think they do, it's all that matters.
And we've got that coming up too. He talked about the coaching search. We got to talk about that. Is he even still the general manager? That's just so much left to talk about in this episode,
Yes.
and we've already gone 20 minutes.
Yeah, have they actually just sent somebody out that is going to be gone in a week to talk about the future of this team? I would not put that on the Hornets PR. So yes, we will find that out. Coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast. A little funky there, but it doesn't matter. We're still rolling.
Wow.
We're going to talk about, that's my fault.
Everybody's a critic.
No, it's my fault too. I'll take ownership of that. We will talk about Mitch
Keep it
Kupchak.
moving.
I'm trying. Mitch Kupchak speaks about his foreseeable future. Also, we'll hear about some of the other things he has to say about the things he wants to see in a new coach for the Charlotte Hornets. Let's talk about Built Bar first. Look, I love brownies. Who doesn't? But you know what I love more? It's brownie batter, especially when you get the spoon and then you lick the brownie batter off of the spoon. It's so good.
Yeah.
But we know how unhealthy that is. Sometimes I eat half the batter just thinking about, exactly what's going to come of it because it is so good. But what's great about the brownie batter Built Bars, alliteration, is the fact that you do have only 150, 130 calories. They're healthy for you. Sugar is low, carbs are low, but you do have high protein and you do have high fiber. So they really, again, they sit at about 130, 150, and they taste extremely good. You don't have to sacrifice taste while eating something healthy for you. Go to built.com, use promo code LOCKED15 and get 15% off your order. Use promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at built.com. We have more Mitch Kupchak sound coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast.
This is Locked On Hornets.
Mitch Kupchak has outright told us that they probably got a little ahead of themselves with this playoff mandated season. In that interview that he had with Sam Farber, he's like, we probably were a little too froggy at the beginning and we felt really good. That's fine.
Did he say froggy? Did he really drop a froggy?
I said froggy.
All right.
He didn't say that, quote unquote. But I have to imagine he was feeling that in his soul.
I would be really surprised if Mitch Kupchak threw in a froggy.
It's time for more of the Locked On Hornets podcast.
I did have some time. I waved my hand. I got called on. I did not ask Mitch Kupchak if he's ever felt froggy before.
It's a shame. Missed opportunity.
From the clip we've seen, it looks like you read the room correctly.
Yeah, that's true. I did not ask him that, but I don't know what his answer would have been, but we'll never know now. Instead,
what did you ask?
Yeah, instead, I did decide to ask him something. We'd gone like 15 minutes into the presser. We didn't know exactly what his
amazing. I can't believe it wasn't the first question.
To be fair, James Borrego stuff is important too. And a lot of focus was on the decision to move on from head coach James Borrego. We talked about that process, also the new head coaching search. So it's not crazy, right? Like it hadn't been asked at that point. So here Mitch Kupchak is talking about what his future may or may not be with the Charlotte Hornets.
Yeah, I will be here for the foreseeable future. I've agreed with the Hornets, to continue to work, for years to come. I think the expression would be a multi-year deal.
That is an expression.
And I'm thankful, right?
I love it.
To be still working in this league, going to meetings, with general managers and the commissioner and all these bright people at the league office and watching this league grow and, flying down and meeting with, Michael, and Buzz and talking basketball with the best player ever to play the game. So
gotta get that in there.
I'm lucky to be in this position and to continue to do it. So for better or worse, I'll be here for the next couple of years.
Yeah, there's another great
there it is. There, put it on a banner. For better, for worse.
I mean, we all. I'm gonna put this on the YouTube poll. We all hope it's for better, right? But I'll just check. I'll just double check with the commentary here and see if they want it to be for better.
Mitch has a little purred happily in him, does he not? I mean, I am the general manager. Managing general.
It is your birthday, Dwight Schrute type of celebration. Absolutely. No, he's telling you
meetings.
Yeah,
going to meetings.
It is multiple years. And so it was later Rod Boone, I think, asked, and I think he was also asked by somebody else too, just clarification, how many years the deal was, and is it the same title? So he said multi-year deal. So he's not giving you the exact number, whether it's 2, 3, 4, whatever. He just said it was a multiple year deal. The Charlotte Hornets actually just put out a statement. I think Michael Jordan did along with it just like 10, 15 minutes ago as of this recording at like 11:30. So, that it's official, right? Mitch Kupchak, he's going to be the general manager. And we had also talked about the possibility of him being an advisor with the organization. He still has the same responsibilities. The way I phrased that question was, are you going to be making the draft selections and are you going to be the head decision maker in free agency? Essentially said yes, like this is still going to be my responsibility at the end of the day. So it's still the same role. He's going to be here for a little while. David, start with you. What'd you make of Mitch Kupchak telling you that he is going to be here for a while, and how good do you feel about that?
Yeah, and we joke, but it's possible that none of that stuff was finalized, right? When he had that Zoom. So it could have just been, staying on the right side of legalese or whatever by saying multi, and it is.
Well, and they don't share details. I mean, player contracts, we know to the penny how much they make. we do not know what the coach
Yeah.
contracts look like. We don't know the general manager contracts and what they look like.
Well, I think this is good for the Charlotte Hornets, obviously. I mean, the job Mitch has done. He still has some steps to make too. We've talked about it, Doug. You mentioned it the other day. He has not made that big swing for the fences trade that you kind of have to make, especially if you're a small market looking to take a leap or a step and bring in talent that you just wouldn't be able to get, haven't gotten, or not going to get in free agency. You know what I mean? So that's still something we have not seen. That trade deadline trade. I mean, he's made, I guess, the Montrezl or the Montrez trade was a trade deadline type thing, but hasn't been a big one. We haven't seen that. But the job he's done from when he took over, you got to be thrilled, especially the draft. Look how they've been able to add through the draft, the talent they've been able to kind of grow within the system, and the hires they made. I mean, look, JB, call it what you want, but that was a success. They jumped up and they were able to improve. Certainly, LaMelo helped with that. He's got the superstar, or he's got the star now to build around, and we'll see what he does. So you want stability, right? I mean, and you want to keep moving forward, and you want somebody who has that vision. And from what he said about the Borrego stuff, about the state of this franchise, it still sounds like they're on the same wavelength. They're moving in the same direction. And from all we've heard about this coach hiring process as well, we like the list. We like that they're taking their time. We like that they're being careful with it. So, yeah, I think you want to move forward with this and keep that in-house, and that's what the Hornets did.
Yeah, so this means a couple of things, right? It means that this wasn't a full clean house kind of scenario, which is probably better for the organization in the long run. It means that Michael Jordan obviously trusts Mitch Kupchak. And it means that these reports of them dangling, possible general manager duties in front of one of these head coaching candidates, it seems that's out the window. Now, could things change? Who knows? But it just doesn't seem like that's where they're heading at this point. But I do think that in my mind, I would feel even more comfortable now if they brought in a big name, a coach that has been there, done that, been to the playoffs, been to a conference finals, that has the weight to go into Mitch Kupchak's office and say, get me the kinds of players that I need to get to a conference finals, right? What would scare me is if they do bring in a new voice that doesn't have that experience and doesn't have that weight in the room when it comes to not only talking to Mitch Kupchak, but talking to Michael Jordan.
Well, Eastern Conference Finals might not be in play, according to Mitch Kupchak. He talked about expectations going into next season, and he said it's important to be realistic about expectations. Here's more from Mitch Kupchak discussing what kind of goals they might have going into next year.
Well, the other thing we have to be careful about is, thinking that we're better than we really are, right? I mean, we're not a team that's going to get into the finals, right? Although Atlanta got into the conference finals a year ago, I don't know how realistic that is. What I'd like to do with this team, I'd like to get us into the playoffs, and wouldn't it be great to win a round, right? And then anything after that would probably be gravy. So you got to be careful that you don't make moves, to try to mosey the progress along quicker than is realistic. And that might mean bringing in veterans, that really you're not ready for.
Okay,
all right, Doug,
so
go ahead.
You want a quicker mosey, Doug? You want to mosey quicker?
This is your bite.
I would love to see what the YouTube commenters think. I might even put it on the poll as well.
Go ahead.
Would you like to mosey a little bit quicker? I feel like I would like to mosey just a little bit quick. I don't know what a mosey is.
Well, it's not.
I don't know if I even want
quick.
a mosey. I don't think a mosey is by nature quick. I think when you mosey along, it's a little bit like an amble, like you're ambling along. I don't want to mosey. I don't want to amble. I think at this point, I hear the ticking clock of LaMelo Ball's rookie extension, and then beyond that, trying to keep him with this organization. And I would like to accelerate this process to the point where they are going to the playoffs and going farther in the playoffs. The thing that's interesting about this to me, and what's weird to me, is that Kupchak says this, and that like this team is owned by Michael Jordan. And so like we all understand from that documentary series that played on Netflix while we were all shuttered in for the pandemic, like Michael Jordan loves to win. and he wants to win championships, and like he has that sort of motivated drive. And it's just this juxtaposition of somebody coming on and saying, well, if we win a playoff series, great. We're not an Eastern Conference Finals team. I would just like to see the expectations being set a little bit higher. Lie to me a little bit, I guess is what I'm saying.
But doesn't that give you some color around maybe Michael's transformation as an owner or patience growing with that? I mean, Mitch isn't saying this if he's turning around and getting a call from MJ saying, we have to win now, fire JB, we've got to get a guy in here, you've got to do this, this, and this to accelerate the growth of this team unrealistically. I mean, to me, that says that there's a little something more going on throughout the organization that says, we know we've got something here. We don't want to overshoot and ruin it, but we want to keep building on it. I mean, that's what it sounds like to me. I just don't think he's going out there saying, and he's walking back a little bit what we heard from like 8 months ago, right? I mean, that wasn't exactly the attitude they took with JB's last run of, hey, we'd like to get into the playoffs and anything else is gravy.
I want them to gallop. So that's what I'm going to put on the poll.
Okay.
Do you want to see the Hornets mosey, or do you want to see them gallop?
It's a big difference, Doug. I mean, galloping, that's actually longer than just your normal stride. I feel like a gallop, you're actually covering more ground with each step you take. And moseying, there's nothing quick about moseying.
I think mosey is Mosey. I'm pretty sure. I'm going to go with it.
I've never, come to Mitch, I don't think I've ever written that down ever in any.
By the way, poll update. Do you want to see Mitch be here for better or worse? 79% of the audience wants to see him be here for better. Okay. And 20%, high number, honestly. What are you guys doing? They want to see him be here for worse.
Of course they do. Mitch Kupchak giving those expectations. You said you want him to lie to you a little bit. If we were to put our expectations next season, right, Doug? I can't imagine anybody would say we can get to the conference finals next year. I think Mitch Kupchak laid it exactly what you should be expecting, because if you try to put down false expectations, that's how you get an angry fan base. If this
you don't have a coach yet either.
if this team, right, and we'll get to that maybe later on as well.
Sure.
But Mitch Kupchak talks about, okay, it's important to be realistic. We need to get into the playoffs. Okay, so they're contending for a playoff spot. And he said, we can maybe even win one. Like, that's realistic. And I think that's true. Get to the second round. That's all I want to do. We should not gallop before we mosey, if you will, right? Even if both happen this season, then we need to at least win a playoff series for the first time since 2001. There are levels to this. And I would love to win a playoff series as the next tangible goal that we can get before then we take that next step. Now, if that means trading for a veteran, then do that. Go ahead and do that with LaMelo, with Miles. I don't think that puts a cap on your ceiling, which is ultimately what I do not want to do. We can argue about the moves that might do that. I think Rudy Gobert might, for instance. DeAndre Ayton doesn't put a cap. We can talk about that later on. At the same time, I like Mitch Kupchak being realistic, because if everybody would bet money, any kind of money that matters to them, they would say, realistically, the ceiling is probably the Hornets reaching a second round of the playoffs.
Right. And what coach is coming in here with the expectation of anything higher than that, right? Like, who are they talking to right now? And they're saying,
Mike
wait a second. I've got to go to Charlotte and get them to the Eastern Conference Finals next year. I'm going to keep looking, guys.
No, listen, I understand that. I did not want Mitch Kupchak. Here's my frustration. I'm just voicing my frustration.
You wanted a trot. You wanted a little trot.
Yeah, maybe gallop was strong. Okay. Maybe a little trot. Thank you. That's
trot
probably
pretty good. Yeah.
A trot is kind of in between a mosey and a gallop. I think that's correct. But here's the thing. I understand that they're not going to make the Eastern Conference Finals next season. I did not want Mitch Kupchak to come out and say they were going to make the Eastern Conference Finals. But Mitch Kupchak has spent a lot of time in front of a microphone saying this team doesn't have enough talent and isn't going to make an Eastern Conference Finals, isn't going to make a finals, and setting the expectations low and then not doing anything, in terms of like a big trade to move this team into like leap territory. That's what I get frustrated by. And there's a clip coming up in this third segment that scares the ever-loving, is it ever-loving or ever-living? Ever-living daylights out of me. And it kind of ties into all of this, and I'm really scared.
All right. Coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast. We're going to get to that soundbite that scares the ever-loving / living bleep out of Doug Branson, but not before we talk about Bet Online. Our partners at Bet Online continue to be the #1 source for all your betting needs and sports info. Find all the latest odds, news, and sports developments, including this year's basketball playoffs, Major League Baseball scores, the fights, even next season's NFL futures. Bet Online is your continued source for all your sport wagering information, from live betting to playoffs, esports, and more. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and the action. Bet Online, where the game starts. More Mitch Kupchak sound coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast.
You are listening to the Locked On Hornets podcast.
Main character for American Psycho was Patrick Bateman, which really confused me. I always thought that Jason Bateman was Patrick Bateman and that Patrick Bateman
That's a bad mistake.
was Jason Bateman.
It's time for more of the Locked On Hornets podcast.
Let's get to some of the comments before we get to your soundbite, Doug. What are some of
Let's
the
do
people
it.
saying? Let's scroll. Let's see what they have to say about Mitch Kupchak and his expectations.
Scrolling. I'll update you on this last poll. Would you like to see this team Mosey or Gallup? 58% of the commentariat say Gallup. 41% of the commentariat say Mosey. So I believe I win that. Thank you.
Okay.
Uh,
you
books-
do win the Gallup Mosey conversation. You can put that. you
Well, it
can
was a
hang that
Gallup
up.
poll. It was a Gallup poll, is what it was.
That's
It was.
right. Hold on, do I have the laugh sound effect? That's it. There you go. You get it. Danny on the chat, him and I rarely disagree. We're disagreeing a little bit here. Danny on the chat says he's Team Mosey. A measured approach is more sustainable. Big swings can haunt you. But Danny, you got to take a big swing. You got to take a big hack to hit a home run, baby. That's what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm. And then you can mosey around the bases all you want to because you have time at that point. Anything else?
ZZ Daniel says, shout out from South Africa. Holler.
Thank you,
Again,
ZZ.
worldwide. Gates says, I think Mitch will keep the sustainable approach, but see what he can get for one draft pick and a bench player or two to add a starting center. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot we haven't gotten to. He spoke on the draft. He called the draft picks currency. So obviously, he sees those as valuable pieces, valuable team building pieces in the future. So yeah, I mean, I think there was a little bit of him playing coy, but then there was one thing, Walker, that he said, and I didn't expect it because it wasn't really reported. It's a little bit of a nuanced kind of thing that doesn't make for a great tweet. So I need just a couple of seconds here to.
No, you're good. I'll set it up. Like Mitch Kupchak, when he's talking about expectations.
Well, hold on. Do you know? Because I haven't told either of you which clip this is.
I know.
I wanted to surprise
I
you.
think I have a
Would you
feeling
like to
what it
take a
is.
guess before I play the clip?
I feel pretty comfortable understanding who you are as a person and, more importantly, as a Hornets fan. Exactly the quote that scares the bleep out of you. And should I just go ahead and give it away now? Is what you're asking me to do?
I'm asking you to guess, and then we'll see if you're right.
Okay. I think it's the quote. I can even go the quote within the quote. I think it's when he says, we could do nothing and still improve next season. I think that's what scared you most.
Let's see if he's right.
Part of me says, even if you don't do anything, you're going to be better than you were last year. Okay. So
I swear Doug did not tell me.
there are perhaps players you could add. Everybody reads and everybody has suggestions about what you need to add to this team.
Yes,
But
everyone.
we might have those players on the bench.
Yeah. Oh, Mitch. Yeah.
No, you don't.
I feel like we
do-
don't,
you
though.
legitimately.
Kai Jones season. It is
You
Kai
legitimately-
Jones season, baby.
My hat, I'm exposing hair here. That's how crazy you legitimately do not have those players on the bench. You do
I'm
not
so
have
ready.
a center that can defend the rim
He might be-
effectively in the NBA, not in the G League. Not in the G League, in the NBA, you do
Kai
not
Jones
have
has
that
seen
player
time
on your
the
bench.
Doug. Kai Jones is saying, you wanted more Thor. Maybe it's coming at center next year. You wanted more
Oh,
Thor.
boy.
That's your.
Not like this. Not like this.
You're getting it. Yeah, David.
Oh, that's
does
like
this
I
scare you
have
as
to.
bad? Yeah. go
Well,
ahead.
here I'm just holding on to hope
Mhm.
that this was smoke. He's in Chicago right now. I'm sure he's surrounded by a lot of other front office people, general managers,
Well,
and they're all just
he mentioned the meetings he goes to. He loves them.
they're all just blowing smoke up each other's whats, prepping for this draft season. So I'm just hoping that that's not how he really feels.
Well, he also mentioned not wanting to add like a big time player before they were ready to. I believe. Did you guys see that? I don't want to put words in his
Yeah.
mouth.
I
But it's
think-
kind
I
of
think- I
along the
think that
lines.
Well,
was
he goes,
so that was
next
the
day.
last clip I played. He said that you don't want to add veterans
Right.
on it. And I get it. Like, you don't want to add Jimmy Butler to this team. Because if Jimmy Butler gets around this team and is like, oh, this team is not ready to compete in the finals, then I'm going to cause a lot of problems and call people names.
Well, you
and
don't
then
want to
get
add,
traded.
DeAndre Jordan,
Oh God, yeah.
Who
Carmelo
does?
Anthony. So yeah, I mean, I think some of this is playing a lot of it close to the vest, right? I mean, some of it is not wanting to say too much and overplay your hand with so much to figure out, guys. 2 draft picks, free agents. He mentioned all the free agents that they've got to figure out right now that were on their roster last year that they still don't know what to do with. A head coach, like there's so much up in the air right now. But yeah, I mean, if you're looking for a huge change or a big incoming impact, it doesn't sound like they're
Well,
leading that direction.
But
Oh,
I
I'm
guess
sorry.
I guess it goes to the point where, I mean, maybe he's not. No, because it's what we talked about this last segment. Moseying, it's exactly what we talked about. If the goal was to maybe reach the playoffs this year, and a lot of reasons led to James Borrego's firing, and now you're wanting to reach the playoffs for sure, not the play-in, but you want to take the next step because that's clearly just one step in front. Play-in, haven't gotten there.
It's a couple
Next step,
games.
get to the playoffs. Realistically, your ceiling is win a playoff series. That's not this monstrous gap between goals. It's a pretty big damn step if you win a series, but it's not this monstrous gap. And so trading for a starting center is also not this monstrous trade, but it's enough to make you reach that next goal. And I think Mitch Kupchak is probably just tossing those things in the air, and we'll see how it all plays out. I did want to say this real quick. Mitch Kupchak, I think he is also kind of throwing, I know what people think is best for this team. He's rating. Like Mitch Kupchak just told everybody,
He
he
watches
hears your
this
comments.
podcast.
Yeah,
he watches
he does.
this podcast.
Yeah, he's listening
I
to
can't
us right now.
confirm that. I can't confirm that.
He's got Substacks.
But I think he watches this. I think he watches this podcast.
What are your thoughts, Doug? You wanted to share something. I saw it on your face.
Oh, I just saw Danny on the chat saying, well, he did preface it with part of me, which is a fair point. It's a great preface. I wish he had just said, I have a baby. Then he would just get away with anything.
Yeah.
But he
clearly.
did say part of me. So, I hope that all I can hope is that like he's Two-Face and the other part of him, the way he like flips a coin and the other part of him is like, oh yeah, I should probably get a defensive, a center that can block a shot.
Right.
Yeah. Because we all know one thing that he's not right about is if he didn't say center, he said, I know there's a lot of things people
He
think
didn't say the word. He didn't say the word. I just want him to say the word.
Right.
I
He
want to
didn't-
like
he
it's
didn't
like
say it.
no, here's the thing. I am a person in a relationship that is frustrated right now because all I want you to say is I love you. Just
Yeah,
3 simple
I
words.
got
Just
you.
say I love you. I just want him to say the word center and maybe add defensive to it.
We all know what it is.
Does
Yeah.
this make you think that in their mind, hey, we made a little bit of a surprising decision, and it did sound like an easy one to let JB go. I mean, in Rod Boone's piece, they outlined kind of the timeline that Mitch went through, deciding to move on from JB. But it feels like that was was that their big move? You know what I mean? Was that the big change that they felt like, hey, we can impact this team this way for sure, bringing somebody in and changing the voices around this team?
It's certainly a pretty big move. I don't know. It's not the big move. I think that's going to propel them all the way to a playoff series win. But it's going to look. I don't get mad, and Doug, correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think you get mad at Mitch for making that comment because he's wrong. I think Miles Bridges. I don't think Miles Bridges has hit his ceiling. I don't think LaMelo Ball certainly has not hit his ceiling. Neither has PJ Washington. If that's your core for next year, and Terry Rozier keeps some similar level of production, then yeah, he's right. You could really not do anything and still get better. But that's not the goal, right? It's not that he's wrong. It's the fact that, okay, but that doesn't mean it's okay to just not do anything. You still want to do something. That because he's not wrong. At the same time, you do want him to make some type of move to establish we have a starting center now, and this is going to unlock some nice things for us.
Yeah, it's the difference between, yes, it is a little bit of semantics, right?
Right.
They do need to internally improve on defense. It's something that James Borrego mentioned walking out the door, that it's not just about that defensive center wouldn't solve every issue they have.
No,
But
right.
internal
players-
improvement is a big part of that. Like we just talked about that with LaMelo.
Totally get that, but I would also like a recognition, and I'm not going to get it. That's the thing. I'm asking for something I'm not going to get. That I want some recognition that they went into last season completely debilitated by the fact that they did not have a center that could protect the rim and an NBA quality big rotation. It wasn't even about one player. It's the fact that their rotation of bigs was not good enough to compete in the thing that they project to want to achieve. You want to win a series? Look how hard. I mean, go think back to that first round and how hard it was for those teams to win those series.
Yeah.
Like it's difficult, and I just want some recognition of that. I hope, again, that it's all just playing stuff close to the vest and that they are seriously considering making moves. I did one other funny thing he said in this is that he mentioned, I don't have a clip of this, but he mentioned, I think we can improve next season, 3 wins, 5 wins, I don't know, 7 wins.
Shoot for the stars.
And let's do
wins.
some math
That would be
here.
50
Let's do
wins.
some math. 43 plus, I got to get it in the camera, 7 equals 50. 50 wins.
Did you guys get any indication of the timeline on this? Because when these quotes were leaking out, and Walker, you were obviously on this, but when I was reading stuff, people were tweeting out based on when they think they might be able to bring in a coach. It sounded longer to me. But reading this or seeing Rob Boone's piece and hearing some of these quotes, it sounds like we could get it in like the next week or two. But they definitely want to do it about the draft. Which, thumbs up, definitely have someone here about the draft.
Yeah, Mitch literally said it's hard to imagine them making that announcement within the next week. So don't expect it this week, according to Mitch. Maybe they said, you know what, screw it, we do want this guy. But as of right now, don't expect that within a week. They are hoping to get it done by the draft, as you mentioned, and it's kind of like, duh, the draft is a long way away. I wonder if that's just Mitch like not recognizing timeline, right? Like that's just him not thinking clearly. Mitch, come on,
thinking
dude.
to
Well, it probably seems closer to him.
Well, it's thinking to the next event. The next big event is the NBA draft, and certainly they would have a coach by then. Now, here's what I'd like to do is run a little Locked On Hornets overtime session, because there's a lot we didn't get to.
There's so much.
So we're going to talk about it in depth next week, but I want to do a little lightning round. Walker, you're going to know this best because you were there.
Do I have to do it blindfolded? Can I just go ahead and keep my eyes open, please, for this?
You can keep your eyes open for sure.
Okay.
I mean, I'm not going to look, there's a level of talent that's necessary to do what I did yesterday, which is just blindfolded, fire off takes, okay? I'm not going to put that pressure on you, okay?
Thank you.
I'm being like Mitch Kupchak. I'm going to set expectations here. But I do want to do a little lightning round and just hit us, Walker, hit us with the things that the audience needs to know that has been faithfully. We got 117 people watching this broadcast right now. Wow. That stuns me. Yes, thank you to everyone around the world that's watching this podcast right now. But hit us with lightning round takes that we heard from Mitch Kupchak.
Okay, we went through the coaching timeline. They've interviewed 8 to 10 candidates, and surprisingly, they're not done. Maybe not surprisingly. They're going to interview more candidates. They put Terry Stotts in the coaching pool just a couple of days ago.
Stotts.
Yep, they're still going to reach out for some other guys, apparently, so we'll see exactly who those coaches are, but they're not done, and we'll see. They are leaning towards head coaching experience being the next head coach.
David, real quick, what do you think about that? Lightning round, go fast.
I think that means Mike D'Antoni is for sure the next head coach.
For sure. Yes, number one. He didn't say for sure, but he did say we're probably leaning towards a coach that himself has head coaching experience. If you get to some of the player stuff, he did say it is their intention to bring back Miles Bridges, and he did say Miles Bridges is a big part of their future. That's another really important soundbite that we'll get to next week. I asked PJ Washington. That's a new soundbite I've never heard before. I asked him about PJ Washington. He wouldn't give specifics on any free agent with this team, but he did say PJ took clearly a big step, thrived in any role that we asked of him, whether it was center, defensively, coming off the bench, starting. So likes PJ, but no extension details as of there. He did talk about the decision to let go of James Borrego. He said they just kind of need a new voice. The timing of that decision came because Mitch Kupchak wanted to sit back and think about it for a little bit. And then he made it, which is why I don't really think the timing was always that big of a deal. It always made sense to me that before you make this decision, that you might want to take a week or 10 days or so. And they did that. And then ultimately they decided that it was going to be JB gone. Said it was an emotional conversation. So JB looks like he, went down swinging, and he said he understands why, it was kind of emotional and that it sucked, right? He said that it was a really hard decision to make. It's a tough part of the job. So those are some of the things that come from the top of the dome as to what Mitch Kupchak had to say yesterday. Draft stuff too, but at this point I'm rambling. We'll get to that next week.
That was good. That was good. Next week, I really want to dig into the coaching stuff because I think it's really interesting. I think that the way that decision went down, we had speculated on it, and I think we got, again, according to Mitch Kupchak, I think we got some of that wrong. Yep. So that'll be interesting to dig into next week. The Miles Bridges stuff. I mean, we gotta really dig down and understand like what it means to keep Miles Bridges and what it means to let him go. I think because it's not all in the Hornets' control, by the way. I mean, you can say, Mitch Kupchak can come out and say we want to keep Miles Bridges. That doesn't mean anything. The Hornets will have to do something massive potentially if they want to keep Miles. So, a lot to get to.
Yep. Do you want to finish with some comments before we end today's show? What are some of the comments there? I know you love scrolling, so let's end with a nice scroll from Doug Branson.
David says, I trust Mitch. Ty says, LiAngelo has to be on the team next season. Real quick, your thoughts on that?
I think that's the big move that we've been wanting from Mitch Kupchak this entire time.
He's got his eyes on Greensboro.
Ty also says, trade Hayward away.
For sure.
Oh, good idea.
See, it's tough on the comments sometimes that because everyone's having conversations with one another, and that's great. We love everyone's chopping it up in the comments right now. But I'm trying to find some comments that are directed at us. I do want to say too that I'm working on setting up a way that you can tweet us. In fact, if everyone watching right now to test, I need you to be my guinea pigs on this. If you can tweet us a question that you have on Twitter at Locked On Hornets with the hashtag HIVE Live, HIVELIVE, hashtag HIVE Live, all one word. Tweet us questions at Locked On Hornets, and we'll answer them next week. But I need to test the system that we can actually put your tweets on air. It's going to look really cool in the future. So again, hashtag HIVE Live at Locked On Hornets. Let's see. Joel asks, can they do a deal with Gordon to lessen the burden of his contract? Well, he has that trade kicker, right? I mean, he's going to get paid more money if he gets traded.
Well, yeah, in the NFL, they restructure contracts all the time. You're not going to see that from Gordon Hayward. So if it was the NFL, absolutely, you'd ask him.
They're still paying Nick Batum.
Yeah.
It's like dead cap money.
He did restructure, and it's still to the detriment.
It's still dead cap money. Yeah, so they're not paying Nick Batum, but they're still paying for the Nick Batum decision, yes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they are paying Nick Batum $9 million, right? I mean,
okay. Here's my final comment and my final tease. It's the one thing that I really wanted to get into the show, but I had to cut it. It was 3A on the list of priority topics because I think it's so interesting.
The bigger the build, real quickly, the bigger the build up for you, the more ridiculous I expect things to be from you, Doug.
Listen, I've earned that reputation, but I'm being serious here. This is from Books, and Doug's best friend says him calling out Borrego, him being Mitch Kupchak calling out Borrego for not playing the rookies.
Yeah, it's a good point. It's a great point.
I saved it. I'm going to save it for next week. You have to hear this audio. Well, you can go listen to it if you want to on, I'm sure people posted it, but we're going to talk about it because this was super interesting next week.
No, that's a great point. That was a big thing. I forgot in the rapid fire there. It absolutely was big just to hear what Mitch Kupchak's thoughts were, that he leaves that up to the coaches. Trying to navigate what to talk about next week, what to talk about here. But yeah, great point. Great comment there. David, your final thoughts on what you heard from Mitch Kupchak yesterday. Feeling good, feeling scared. What are you thinking as we end the show today?
Yeah, more Mitchapalooza, you know, it rolls on. So I think they're looking to build on this. A lot of the and
Mosey Palooza.
yeah, and he ID, you know, a lot of the guys that we've earmarked, obviously the obvious ones, PJ, Miles, like they feel like that is the core they're building around, right? They want to keep them. They've talked about them, so they're building off of that. I wouldn't expect any huge swings, but we'll see. So more Mitch, more growth. Go Hornets.
Go America, let's swarm Charlotte. Go like us on Facebook. If we get to 1,000 Facebook likes, it's Locked On Hornets on Facebook. If we get to 1,000 Facebook likes, I dress like grandmama.
Mhm. I don't even
You
think
get to
I've
see
liked
it.
it yet. So I need to go like that as well and just give a freebie. It is the free space on the bingo card in order for you to see Doug Mama later on. I forget who told us to call it that, but I appreciate
It's
that
Tar Heel
suggestion.
Petey, shut up.
Tar Heel Petey, shout out, man. Appreciate you. All right. Thanks for making Locked On Hornets your first listen every day. Make your second listen Locked On NBA from the first jump ball of the play-in tournament to the last possession of the finals. Locked On experts take you deep inside the playoffs with insight and analysis affecting all 30 teams. Thanks again to David Walker for joining us as he does every Friday, helping us break down Mitch Kupchak's comments. We will see him next week. We will see you next week as well as we continue to talk about Mitch Kupchak's comments right here on the Locked On Hornets podcast.